This is 4 steps to getting your SOC 2 report for busy founders, even if you have zero security knowledge. You're a founder, you're ambitious, and you've got a fast-growing company. But are you dealing with SOC 2 compliance? That daunting, time-consuming thing standing between you and bigger deals? If you plan on closing deals with other companies, governments, or even charities, you're gonna need a SOC 2 report, and fast. My name's Christian. I used to work at Deloitte, which, if you don't know, is a firm that does over 800 SOC audits per year and does over 60 billion in revenue. So in this video, I'm gonna break down 4 critical steps that will get you SOC 2 compliant in half the usual time. This is gonna save you months of stress and allow you to close bigger deals without having to worry about SOC 2 compliance. If you're wondering why I make these videos, it's just so I can earn your trust and eventually sell you my software that automates the entire SOC 2 compliance process. But now that you're here, I should talk about why SOC 2 even matters. And if you haven't heard recently, Bank of America got hacked, AT&T got hacked, and even Fidelity got hacked recently. And because of all these data breaches, the world is shifting towards data security. Companies now need confidence that they can trust you with their data. And if you can't give them that confidence, they won't do business with you. That's where SOC 2 comes in. SOC 2 is the gold standard for data security. It's an independent audit that your company has to get to prove that you're handling data securely. And if you don't have it, you are locking yourself out of deals while your competitors swoop in. So without further ado, let's get into these 4 steps so that you can achieve compliance fast. Step 1 is determining your compliance needs. First step is understanding what exactly you need. One of the biggest mistakes I see is founders jumping into SOC 2 without knowing what they really need, and it causes delays and headaches later on. To figure out what you need, you have to understand the 5 pillars of the SOC 2 framework. These are known as the trust services criteria. So if you hear anybody talking about the trust services criteria or the TSCs, this is what they're talking about. The 5 pillars are security, privacy, confidentiality, processing integrity, and availability. Here's what you need to do. Identify which of these pillars is relevant to your business. If you're not sure where to start with security. Security is the only mandatory trust services criteria, but depending on your business, you may need to include others in your SOC 2 report. What I recommend as a starting point is just to have a conversation with ChatGPT. I personally recommend using a prompt for this that turns ChatGPT into your compliance expert so that it can analyze your business and tell you exactly which of the trust services criteria matter for your business. And I'll leave that ChatGPT prompt in the description for you to access it. Once you've decided which of the TSCs are relevant to your business, now you have to figure out whether you need a SOC 2 Type 1 report or a SOC 2 Type 2 report. And this is where it gets a little confusing, so I'll try to keep it simple. SOC 2 Type 1 report assesses your compliance at a specific point in time. You're picking one day to prove that you're compliant on that day. SOC 2 Type 2 report evaluates your compliance over an extended period of time, usually 3 to 12 months. You'll probably eventually need a Type 2, but if this is your first SOC 2 report, a Type 1 is a great starting point. Again, every company is different, so this is another great question to ask ChatGPT. Once you've confirmed which of the trust services criteria you have to include in your report, and whether you want a Type 1 or a Type 2, you've got your plan. This will be your roadmap for the rest of the process. Step 2 is to conduct a readiness assessment. Now that you know what you need, it's time to figure out where you stand today. Odds are you're not at 0% compliance. If you've done basic stuff like setting a strong password and enabling 2-factor authentication, you're already on your way to being fully compliant. A readiness assessment is like a practice run for your actual audit. This allows you to figure out if you're 10% compliant, 30% compliant, maybe you're even 60% compliant. And you'll use that readiness assessment to figure out what you need to do to achieve 100% compliance. You have a couple options for this. Your first option is to hire a CPA firm. CPA firms know SOC 2 inside and out. They'll dig deep into your setup and make sure everything is perfect, covering every detail. If your company's big or complex, they'll handle it all without breaking a sweat. The catch is they're expensive, usually tens of thousands of dollars, and they can take a long time since they've usually got a lot of clients to juggle. This option makes sense if your company has a big budget and highly complex security needs. Option 2 is to hire a security consultant. Security consultants are data security pros. They'll tailor advice to your needs, pointing out weak spots and giving practical steps for fixing them. They're also quite flexible, so you get more hands-on help. The catch is, while sometimes cheaper than a CPA firm, a good consultant can still cost quite a bit, and they may not be SOC 2 experts specifically, so you might end up needing extra help on the SOC 2 details. This option makes sense if your company wants focused help on security without going through a full SOC 2 expert. You can also use Easy Audit for this. Easy Audit is the first platform that actually asks you questions about your company, learns from your responses, and then generates custom instructions on what you need to do to become compliant. It uses AI to generate your controls, your policies, and even the documents that you need to become compliant, so you can get through the entire process in half the time for half the cost. This option makes sense if your company is looking for the fastest, most cost-effective way to achieve SOC 2 compliance without getting weighed down by all the complexity. So now that you've got your readiness assessment, it's time to implement all the SOC 2 controls. Step 3 is implementing the SOC 2 controls. This is where the rubber meets the road. Based on your readiness assessment, you now know exactly what steps you need to take to become 100% compliant with SOC 2. Implementing all the controls can take some time, but it's absolutely critical. Here's what you need to focus on. The first thing is building or refreshing your policies and procedures. Take a look at the key areas SOC 2 covers, like security, confidentiality, and so on, and make sure your policies address each one. If you already have policies, this might just mean updating them to meet the SOC 2 standards. Next, put technical controls in place. Set up practical protections like multi-factor authentication, encryption for sensitive data, and schedule regular security checks. These controls are the backbone of keeping data secure. Next, set up monitoring processes. SOC 2 needs ongoing monitoring, so establish ways to track and manage these controls over time. This could mean using monitoring software, setting alerts, or scheduling regular check-ins. Lastly, train your team. Everyone on your team needs to be in the loop. SOC 2 compliance works best when everyone understands and follows these new policies. Run training sessions and make it a habit to keep your team updated. And here's a pro tip: make a to-do list for each of these controls. That way it's super easy for you to knock them out one by one or assign these as responsibilities to your team. Step 4 is the last step. This is engaging a CPA firm. Okay, you're in the home stretch now. It's time to bring in a CPA firm to conduct your official SOC 2 audit. Here's what this involves. Research and select a reputable CPA firm that conducts SOC 2 audits for companies like yours. Make sure you have all that documentation prepared for the auditor. Remember that thorough documentation I mentioned earlier? This is where it pays off. Then facilitate the audit process. This part is usually pretty straightforward, answering some simple questions for the CPA firm, providing some documents that they may ask for, but you've done most of the work by this point. Lastly, review the draft report that the CPA firm sends you, address any findings, and you're good to go. And I should mention, if you used Easy Audit for this process, we would connect you with a CPA firm so you don't have to go out and look for one yourself. SOC 2 compliance is a big undertaking, but it can also be your biggest opportunity to build trust with your clients, which of course results in bigger deals and more revenue for your company. By breaking the SOC 2 process down into these 4 steps, you can now approach the whole process confidently and methodically. Yes, it takes time, but the payoff in terms of more revenue for your company, more client trust, and increased overall security is well worth it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry, that's completely normal. SOC 2 can be complicated, and there's no shame in seeking help. Whether it's bringing in a consultant, using a compliance automation tool like Easy Audit, or just asking a friend who's been through the process, make sure you use all the tools you have available at your disposal. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.